Hi, my name is Tori King and welcome to Tori Talks. I am currently a senior in high school and have had muscular dystrophy since birth, which causes me to use a wheelchair full time. In order to raise awareness about the disabled community, I created this podcast to bring in guests from different areas of the community to have them discuss the issues they feel affect their specific disability, as well as the community as a whole. Today, I am featuring Karen Karpik, who is a member of the deaf community and has a service dog. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living? What does your life look like?
Okay, so my name is Karen. I don't really have a nickname. Well, I do. My nickname is Freckles because I have a lot of freckles. And it was a camp name and it kind of stuck. So friends of mine that know me well call me that. I am a laboratory assistant. I work for LabCorp in Dublin. And basically, I go and pick up samples that need to be run for test. So let's say that you had a blood test run at your doctor's office and they need to send it to the lab. We would run it to check normal stuff. I have been deaf since birth. My parents found out that I was deaf at 18 months, and I wore hearing aids bilaterally until I was in college and decided to get cochlear implants. I have a service dog and I live by myself. And for fun, I like to go hiking and camping and read books.
What was your favorite memory you have growing up?
My favorite memory is traveling with my parents. My dad would take a couple weeks off in the summer from work, and we would drive from Ohio to wherever. And I feel like I got to see a lot of things because my parents enjoy traveling. I also enjoy things like COSI and just being able to do hands-on science stuff. But I appreciated being able to travel with my parents.
For sure. I love traveling. That's some of my favorite things to do with my family. Like my mom and I this past summer, we went up the Northeast and it was so cool to just get to see all the different places. But also with traveling, I've found a lot of issues with me for accessibility. What does that look like for you? Because obviously you have different accommodations you need than I would.
Yeah. So for me, I don't have the same disability that you have. So hiking and getting from point A to point B is not my biggest challenge. My biggest challenge for me is communication. If I'm sitting in the back seat of the car and there's a conversation going on in the front, I'm not included because I can't really hear what's going on in the front, or I feel very disconnected. So I actually prefer to be the one driving, or I prefer to be the one doing something that I feel like I'm helping out rather than just sitting back there not doing anything. I also have to see if I can get an interpreter if we do any guided tours, or we have to find out if there's a script that I can read or something, because I can't do audio tours. If we were to go somewhere and there's an audio description for a different location, those do not work for me.
That makes sense. Have you ever felt like you were an outsider because of your disability? Sometimes I feel like when my friends are like, we should go bowling or something, and I'm like, maybe not. That doesn't sound fun to me.
It makes sense. It totally does. Yes, because of I'm involved in both communities. I'm involved in both the deaf community, so I do have my deaf friends that understand my issues, and we don't really have the same communication problems when we get together. But I also have my group of hearing friends, or my family is hearing, and they're not really a part of my deaf community. So yes, I feel like I'm along for the ride sometimes. And you know how when you watch a suspenseful movie or a thriller and you're waiting for something to happen and you're about to jump? Well, for me, when I go to the grocery store or when I walk somewhere and I'm not totally aware of my surroundings, I'm waiting for someone to scare me to death. So by having Luke, my third dog, he basically looks behind me or he'll look over to the side, and I feel a little more connected or aware of my surroundings, or if he's taking a nap during a meeting or taking a nap during one of my hangouts, then I feel a little more relaxed because he's not concerned.
How long have you had Luke?
I have had Luke a year in November, and he is my third service dog.
Oh, cool. How long have you had a service dog?
I have had a service dog since I was 19. I got one my freshman year of college, and it was a great decision because I was able to take him on campus, and he would ride the campus bus with me, and he would take a nap during class, and when the bell rang, he would get up, and I just felt more aware of what was going on. So having a service dog, people come up to me and they ask questions, and I'm okay with that, but it forces me to be an extrovert when I don't want to be. So I have to end up answering some questions about having the dog, but I'm more comfortable talking about having a dog than some other topic with strangers. But at the same time, I feel like by having the dog, it helps people to realize I'm not ignoring them. Like if I don't respond to them talking to me and I just continue on my way, it's because I literally did not hear you. And this helped me out. But my friends who have hung out with me and they know how I can be with the dog and without the dog, they know that he's helpful. Some people actually forget that he's there. It's basically at a restaurant, he'll be under the table, and then I get up to leave and I have a dog with me. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, that makes sense that people ask. Because people always ask about things that they, like, aren't normal to them. You know, people ask me all the time, like, why are you in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And then you have to give, like, a lot more information about your life than you ever want to give to a random stranger. Earlier you talked about how you are a member of the deaf community.
Yeah.
Have you always felt like you're a member of the deaf community, or has that increased as you've gotten older?
It increased as I got older. When I was younger, I had some connection with some of the people at my school that was like in my special ed class and stuff with other like deaf people. Then my parents mainstreamed me in middle school and high school, so it was a little bit of a disconnect there. But once I started college, I started seeking other people that were like me. And I was trying to figure out my identity and who I was and what to do because I was never going to fit in the hearing world. And as I have gotten older, I feel much more confident in my identity and much more okay with my limitations.
Like growing up, I almost didn't want to be a part of the disabled community. Like, you know, that internalized like ableism you have where you're like, I just want to be like everybody else. But like as I've gotten older, I mean, obviously I'm doing a whole project about like the disabled community.
I understand. And I think that's a natural progression, and I think it's okay to do that. I think it, you know, finding the people that let you do those things, and then you find out what you enjoy doing with your community.
Exactly. And I think it's important that like it's talked about how like you're not always an active member of your community, and like that is just a progression that you get over time. So I wondered, what issues do you feel like the deaf community faces versus the disabled community as a whole? Because I think when people look at the disabled community, they always assume like mobility issues. And obviously, it's such a wide array of issues and limitations that people have.
So, sorry, that was Luke. A lot of
It's okay.
stuff can happen to be communication issues. For example, I'm trying not to get political, but for example, Biden made his website more ADA friendly, and he had interpreted at his inauguration and certain things. Trump did not. So it was things like that, what was visible and what wasn't visible. Captions on TV aren't always accurate, and sometimes with the news, when they do auto-generated caption, there's a lot of like misspelling, or sometimes they actually leave out the cuss words, and it's like, why are you censoring the dialogue of this show when hearing people can actually hear the word, but you're not letting deaf people see the word? So it'll be certain things like that where censoring or captioned movie theaters, there's a caption device that you can get. So you walk in, you buy your ticket, you get this caption device that fits in your cup holder. And it's got this long bar and it puts the word on it. Well, those things like fall over or they fall this way. And so you end up gluing it or you're holding it. Sometimes you can get lucky and find open captions where they actually put the captions on the screen at the movie theater, but then you get angry hearing people that don't want captions on the screen.
Got it. Yeah, I've noticed like sometimes because I really like captions, so I turn them on when I'm watching anything anyway, and I'll be like, this is just not right. Like the words are just not what they're supposed to be at all.
And I never knew that until I was with interpreters or hearing people that told me that's not right or that's not what they said.
Good.
So I did find it very interesting. It's like, why are you changing the dialogue? And then we have no idea that the dialogue's been changed until later.
Exactly. That's so funny that they'll censor it. Like, why would you censor it? If you're going to say it anyway, just write it out, too.
Right. That's what I was like saying. Write it out or use the hashtag or whatever to let us know that they literally angrily said this word. Captions have gotten better with movies. Like they're actually putting in what kind of music. Like before, the captions used to say music and it wouldn't tell you what kind. Now they're getting better at like suspense or exciting, or so that you actually have a better idea that they are playing a certain type of music.
That's good at least, because I mean, just saying music, obviously like suspenseful music is very different from like joyful music.
Yes. So it's like, okay, if I'm watching a scary movie like The Quiet Place or something and they're playing music, I want them to tell me what kind of music it is, because if they're just saying music, I'm like, and whatever.
So other than communication, is there any like issues that you feel like people wouldn't think about with the deaf community?
There's always these questions that normal people ask are, can you drive? Or how can you drive? And we like explain that, well, we're very visual and we have good peripheral vision, so we're able to drive because you don't need your ear to drive. And they're like, well, what about emergency vehicles? And I'm like, well, we can see them coming. We might see them coming. We may not hear them until they're closer or until they show up within our line of sight. But we do drive. Or they're like, do you like music? I mean, there's a wide range of people. I have friends of mine who are like huge country music fan or a huge rock and roll fan. I'm not. I have not connected with music, but I do like audiobook, and I like audiobook by good speakers that in my car can be turned up really loud. And my friends think it's funny because when I meet them in the parking lot, they can hear my book outside. As a person who is deaf, I don't have very good volume control, so I can actually be really loud. And I can speak loudly, and sometimes I can say things that might be inappropriate or something that you might whisper. And people have to tell me, Karen, you said that really loudly. For example, I was at Kroger's with a friend of mine, and she was looking for tampons. And I basically said, well, the tampons are right over here. But apparently it was just really loud instead of in a quiet voice of tampons are over here type of thing. So I had to learn to be okay with being embarrassed, or my friend to be okay with being embarrassed and just laugh about it and move on.
That makes sense. I feel like when you're disabled, you have to just like be okay with being in uncomfortable positions all the time.
Yes, because I remember people just coming to, a lot of people that don't know me or kids that meet me, they go, why do you sound that way? And I have no problem telling them, well, my ears are broken, they don't work, so my voice sounds like this because I don't hear the same way you do. And I'm totally fine with answering kids' questions about that because how else are they going to know?
Exactly. I never have an issue, like, especially if it's a kid asking, I never have an issue talking to them. Sometimes when it's an adult, and I'm like, and they're like, what happened to you? And I'm like, maybe don't ask. You are a full adult right now. Like, I once had a man come up to me in Target. He was like 40, and I'm there with one of my friends, you know, 2 teenage girls, and he just walks up to me, and he's like, what happened to your legs? And I was like, I was born this way, and then he started praying over me. I was just sitting there like, please go away right now.
That actually happened to me last year. I was involved in a situation where we had to help a boy who's deaf, and he lived with his grandma, and they had a miscommunication. He basically threw a trash can out his bedroom door and all sorts of stuff. He was just mad. He's 16, 17. Well, his grandma doesn't know sign language, so he didn't have communication with his grandma. So she called the cops just to be like, this is serious, you can't do this. So the cops came and they worked on the situation, and because I'm part of this mentoring program called Deaf Teen Quest, and so we went there, and the cops started praying over me and just started praying for the deafness to go away and for it to be able to speak. I'm like, really?
Wow, that's crazy. People are just something else.
It's just weird. It's like you said, it's uncomfortable, weird, awkward.
Because you're like, what do you do in that position? I'm always just like, thanks, bye.
Yeah, I don't know what to do either because it really depends on my mood. If I'm patient, I can be nice about it. But if I'm not patient, or like you said, if I'm with my friend and trying to do something normal, I'm like you. I'm kind of like, go away, or I'm busy. But to admit, sometimes the deaf card does work. You can just pretend you didn't hear them at all and just continue to walk. But
I mean, you got to use it to your advantage.
Right.
people often assume when you have like a physical disability that you often have a mental disability too. So I definitely, and I'm small, like I'm very short. So people think I'm a child. So I often have used like I just don't understand what they're saying, which is not true.
Yeah,
I always understand what they're saying. But sometimes I
yeah.
just don't have that fight in me.
I have to be grateful. My dad boss for the company that he worked for like 40 years. His
Mhm.
daughter, who's like the same age as me, has cerebral palsy, and
Mhm.
so her leg didn't work. So she was always in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
And oh my gosh, she is like one smart cookie.
Mhm.
And I feel like being exposed to her as a child, and we would like go to the zoo together and like hang out
Mhm.
together, or I'll go to her house, or she'll come over to my mom and dad's house. That I feel like that exposure taught me just because they have a physical disability doesn't mean they have a mental disability. So I feel like I'm grateful for the exposure to people to learn that just if you have
Mhm.
a physical disability it had nothing to do with your mental disability. And some of
Yeah.
my favorite times is just hanging out with her, getting coffee.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
sometimes yeah, I maybe like I'm grateful for friends that teach me, yes, they may need help, but let them try it first and then
Mhm.
let them ask for help or ask them if they need a hand
Mhm.
because of they don't need you to just jump in every time, and
Mhm.
they may actually surprise you of what they're able to do, but they're not.
For sure. I definitely like when people just let me try on my own and then ask if I need help later.
Yet, yet. So one of my friends, I really love how she's very thoughtful of like other people to, like for example, if we would go hiking, she would know what
Mhm.
trails we could take you on because she would know what's paved, or she'll know if it's
Mhm.
wide enough for more than one person to walk next to each other. And she'll know that there's no like step or steep incline that you're going to go down
Mhm.
a hill and into a creek or something,
Yeah.
because she's very organized and her brain just works in that form because she likes including other people.
Yeah, those are the best people to hang out with. My friends always call it, they're like, is it Tory friendly? And often, like, when we're out at school trips, the places we are don't, like, they're not accessible. So they'll end up just hanging out with me while everyone else goes and does whatever isn't accessible. But we have a good time anyway. So,
Yeah. So this past weekend, I went hiking. Then we went to a restaurant, and it's called the Bear Den. It's like
mhm.
in Cambridge, so it's like an hour and a half from here. But
Mhm.
the handicap stall was awesome. It was
Mhm.
like long and wide,
Oh, nice.
and there was a grab bar behind the toilet, a
Mhm.
grab bar next to the toilet, both horizontal and vertical. And there was no lip, there was no like ramp or door frame or anything. So it was one
Wow.
of those things where you walk into it, you know that somebody's going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Because I
I,
have been into handicap stalls, or what they call handicap stalls, and there'll be one grab bar behind the toilet and the door doesn't shut. I'm like, nobody's going to be able to fit in here, and how is that helpful?
Exactly. That's the worst when you like try to go to the bathroom and like my chair is very small and like there are stalls I can barely fit in. And I'm like, there's no way an adult could fit in here.
Right. Or like a normal sized individual with
Exactly.
paraplegia, or let's say even quadriplegia, and they need an electric
Hmm.
chair and something
Yeah,
bigger. I'm like,
there's no way.
yes. Or I'm having problems and I don't have a chair.
Exactly.
I'm like,
Exactly.
oh my God. So I remember one of my first experiences with my cochlear implant. So my cochlear
Hmm.
implant works really well with environmental sound.
Hmm.
So like I can hear birds or frogs and stuff. But I specifically remember the first time I heard somebody peeing in a public bathroom. I never knew that you could hear other people open the door, go pee, open the door, not wash their hands. Or I never knew that there was so many sounds. I was like, wow. Because to me, without my implant, or when you go to the bathroom and you can't hear very well at all, everything is quiet.
That's something I never thought about.
Yes, but I also, that first year of having my implant, I was so confused by lots of different sounds. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know that flip-flops were so loud. I didn't know that they just went smack, 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 smack. Or I didn't know that certain pants, when you like rub them, that you can hear them switching. Like, I didn't know that pants would go until I ended up hearing them myself, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I do not wear corduroy nylon pants anymore.
Yeah, those are loud.
But I didn't know they were loud before.
Yeah. What pushed you to get your cochlear implant?
A couple of things. I remember actually being at college, and I was with another deaf friend of mine. She could actually hear the elevator beep when it arrived. I couldn't. And there was a couple of other things that she could hear with her hearing aid that I could not. Communication with my parents was getting more difficult. Because of my hearing aids were not working effectively for me anymore. Like, my hearing loss was getting worse. So I was like, I need something better. I need something different. So I decided to go ahead and get the implant, and I really like it. I feel like it really helps, but I do get like auditory fatigue. So when I get home from work, or when I get home from hanging out with people, I take it off and not listen to anything.
That makes sense. I've heard other people or other deaf people like say they take hearing breaks for that same reason.
Yes. Do you ever get like some sort of like wheelchair fatigue, or you just want to sit somewhere else other than in your chair?
Yes. So I try to, like, I don't use my wheelchair in my house at all. I'm able to walk a little bit. So, like, I never use my wheelchair in my house. And then when I'm out and about, I try to sit in, like, another chair as much as I can. So, like, when I'm at school, when I'm at lunch, I don't sit in my chair just so I get a break from that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious because it's like, it's things that you don't think of, you know, when you take something for granted, being able to change positions or sit in a chair or a couch, or just having that option.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And if you
Thank
think
you
of
so
any
much.
question, feel free to email me anytime.
Okay. Thank you so much.
To meet you. Thank you for
It
doing
was
this.
nice to meet you. You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.